The big pitch was designed and developed in India. He also warned against monopolies, AI for global goods, especially for the global south, for developing countries. So the Prime Minister's MANAV pitch was all about the process of democratizing artificial intelligence. No monopolies or duopolies. He did raise concern about the threat posed by deepfakes, but it wasn't just raising a concern. There were also solutions. For example, watermark. A watermark that could perhaps help people know whether this is original or deepfake. Data sovereignty. Now, this is very critical. Jiska data, uska adhikar. What does this mean? What does this mean for you and I? Over the course of the next half hour, we decode the Prime Minister's MANAV vision. I'm Gaurav Sawant. First, we bring you this report.
सर्वजन हिताय, सर्वजन सुखाय, वेलफेयर फॉर ऑल, हैप्पीनेस ऑफ ऑल, यही हमारा बेंचमार्क है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Thursday unveiled India's governance vision, the MANAV framework, as Bharat placed humanity at the center of the AI revolution in a defining moment for the future of artificial intelligence.
न्यू दिल्ली एआई इम्पैक्ट समिट में मैं एआई के लिए MANAV मानव विजन प्रस्तुत करता हूं। भारत का ये मानव विजन 21वीं सदी की एआई आधारित दुनिया में मानवता के कल्याण की अहम कड़ी बनेगा।
Built on ethics, accountability, data sovereignty, accessibility and legal validity, a clear message. Democratize AI. Empower the global south.
एआई के लिए इंसान सिर्फ डेटा पॉइंट न बन जाए, इंसान सिर्फ रॉ मटेरियल तक सीमित न रह जाए, इसलिए एआई को डेमोक्रेटाइज करना होगा। इसे इंक्लूजन और एम्पावरमेंट का माध्यम बनाना होगा।
The Prime Minister also issued a stark warning. AI, like nuclear power, can help or harm.
एआई भी एक ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव पावर है। दिशाहीन हुई तो डिसरप्शन, सही दिशा मिली तो सॉल्यूशन। डीपफेक्स और फैब्रिकेटेड कंटेंट ओपन सोसाइटीज में अस्थिरता ला रहे हैं। फिजिकल वर्ल्ड में हम फूड पर न्यूट्रिशन लेबल देखते हैं ताकि हमें पता हो कि हम क्या खा रहे हैं। ठीक उसी तरह डिजिटल वर्ल्ड में कंटेंट पर भी ऑथेंटिसिटी लेबल्स होने चाहिए।
With participation from over 100 countries and the world's biggest tech leaders under one roof, Prime Minister also positioned India as the future global hub for AI for the world.
भारत के पास डाइवर्सिटी भी है, डेमोग्राफी भी है और डेमोक्रेसी भी है। जो एआई मॉडल भारत में सक्सीड करता है, वो ग्लोबली डिप्लॉय हो सकता है। इसलिए मैं आप सभी को आमंत्रित करता हूं, डिजाइन एंड डेवलप इन इंडिया, डिलीवर टू द वर्ल्ड, डिलीवर टू ह्यूमैनिटी।
global leaders echo India's rise in AI.
10 years ago, the world told India that 1.4 billion people could not be brought into the digital economy. India proved them wrong.
From the discovery of fire to the internet to artificial intelligence, Prime Minister Modi calls this the next civilization leap. The message from the New Delhi tonight: AI must serve humanity, not replace it. Bureau Report, India Today.
And the Prime Minister laid out a very detailed roadmap. It's a civilizational moment. India at the center of it, and India keeping humanity at the center of this AI revolution, as significant as the Prime Minister put it, as the discovery of fire of wireless. So let's explain this MANAV framework: moral and ethical systems, accountable governance, national sovereignty, accessibility to legal legitimacy. These are very significant words, and they have a deep impact, and especially in open societies like India, because the Prime Minister also emphasized something like a deep fake, the threat it poses to an open society. So what is India's key concern and India's key demand? The core blueprint for responsible AI is open source code. No monopolies or duopolies. A call to democratize artificial intelligence. A clear warning: technology must not remain restricted in a few hands or a few countries, must not be just elitist. It must empower all, especially developing countries, the global south. Human control is non-negotiable. And he gave the example of global positioning system, GPS. He said GPS will tell you where to go, but you have to tell the GPS where you want to go. So it will guide you how to get there. AI must remain under human control and command. And the real question is what humanity chooses to do with AI. Data rights and digital trust. Perhaps one of the most significant aspects of the MANAV vision: jiska data, uska adhikar. What does this mean? This means data must not be exploited by others, but harnessed effectively for the betterment of people of that country. Deepfakes pose a huge challenge. You just heard the Prime Minister talk about deepfakes, the challenge they pose to an open society. It could create instability in any country. So clear watermarking, clear source standards must be there. Deepfake danger, the warning, because it can destabilize any society. So what is required at this point of time is transparency and authenticity labels. They are very, very essential so that you know what is real data and what is a fake. Humans over algorithms. People must not become mere data points. AI must benefit mankind or humankind in general through shared and open development. India's global tech ambition is something that the Prime Minister spoke of. You heard him talk about asking giants to come design in India, develop in India for India and for the rest of the world. Deliver to the world powered by semiconductors, secure data, quantum tech, and democracy at scale. This is future at work. An era where humans and AI will coexist. They will co-create, and driven by mass skilling, upskilling, and very important, lifelong learning. A civilizational turning point. The Prime Minister compared AI to the discovery of fire, to speech being converted to writing, and how knowledge benefited generations, and of course, wireless communication, transformation at a historical scale, at civilizational scale. AI is that, and AI is here. And finally, the ultimate goal: Sarvajan Hitai. Artificial intelligence must further benefit to all. Sarvajan Sukhai. And this is Bharat's civilizational philosophy. Welfare of all, happiness for all. So this was India's message to the world today. AI must serve humanity. There is no question of it replacing humanity. Let's now decode what the Prime Minister said Dr. Pawan Duggal is an advocate in the Supreme Court. He's an expert on cyber crime and cyber security law. He joins us on this special broadcast. Sanjay Sahay is a former senior police officer and the founder, director of TechCon Pro. Rajat Sethi joins us as a political analyst. My first question is to my colleague Cyrus John, editor, Emerging Technology here at India Today. Cyrus, the Prime Minister insisted on data sovereignty. The Prime Minister called for data to remain, if we were to take India's example, for example, data to remain in India to train Indian AI systems to benefit Indian people. Explain data sovereignty for us.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. Keeping the data of Indians within the country. And there is a reason that the Prime Minister is pushing for data centers to be developed and made in India, where all of these big AI companies, specifically OpenAI, Google, all of them are using data of Indians. And one of the largest user bases for both these companies are in India. So the Prime Minister feels that if all of these tech companies are using data of so many Indians and training their AI models, why can't the data of the Indians just stay here and train indigenous models? So we need to understand a majority of the country does not speak English. We have our Indic languages. So for AI to be trained on these Indic languages, we need to have the data within India, train the AI models on Indian languages, and then serve the Indians with just 10 to 12% of the population speaking English. The AI doesn't really get democratized, and we need to understand that the data needs to remain in the country. And also, it's all about security as well. Tomorrow, if an AI company doesn't operate in India or ceases operations, what happens to the AI? It will not be operational in India. And that's why we need our own AI systems. And that's why the Prime Minister is pushing for having the data within the country, processing it over here, and then driving benefits from that data within the country itself and keeping it safe over here.
Dr. Duggal, how would you decode the Prime Minister's insistence on data sovereignty while he calls for accessible and inclusive AI systems as a key pillar for MANAV vision?
What Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said is nothing but mirroring the hopes and aspirations of 1.4 billion Indians. Our sovereignty is not just limited to our territorial boundaries. It's also inclusive of not our cyber sovereignty, but also artificial intelligence sovereignty and data sovereignty. We Indians are the most fertile generators of content all over the world. And our data is our property. It ought not to go outside the territorial boundaries of the country for the purposes of its exploitation by other stakeholders. That's why his insistence on data sovereignty or national sovereignty is a distinctive clarion call that is out to the entire world. Whether it's India, whether it's the global south, none of these are going to go in the dark without being heard. They will have their voices very clearly heard to the extent that we are nations of the world. We are entitled to our own data, and our sovereignty extends to our data, which effectively means that India is now going to be potentially walking in the direction of protecting the data as we go forward.
Okay. Dr. Sahay, currently the United States and China dominate. Can countries like India, and as India leads the global south or takes the global south along, can India break that dominance or coexist with that dominance as we continue to grow?
I'll give you a fair idea as to where we come from. It was Deep Blue in 1997, which beat the Grandmaster. It was on a brute force technology. From there, we went to Watson, and from Watson to DeepMind. DeepMind, 2015, we had the OpenAI, and GPT came in 2018. So what I intend to say, however fast the pace of AI might be, the organic growth of any particular country takes a long amount of time, huge amount of time. And most of this hard work happens outside the glare of the cameras. So what America was able to do, there's a very clear-cut decision which was taken somewhere in 2014, 2015, where the American big tech companies, they realized that AI will never see it will never become a reality if they went in a commercial manner. And that is how OpenAI was created with $2 billion. And OpenAI's main purpose was to create models which can be nearly as cheap as possible given to the world. And over a period of time in 2022 on 30th of November, we had the Chat GPT. GPT came, I think, a year or 1.5 years earlier, making GPT-3 into a conversational model. It literally opened artificial intelligence to the world. It was unleashed to the world by ChatGPT, which was primarily making GPT-3 into a conversational model. Now,
Okay.
China at the back end kept on doing, and they did not have the nature of capital investment which was required. So they finally ended up with a product called DeepSeek. DeepSeek completely changed the American model that things can be created only out of billions of dollars and trillions of dollars are expected to be invested, as Sam Altman was going all across the world. Now, DeepSeek and the whole progress of China. So, primarily 1 and 2, these are the slots which have already been booked by this place as it stands now. But in the age of AI, there is nothing static. And given the nature of work which is happening in India, the direction which the government is providing, I think we need to get into the basic infra part of it, both at the AI level, which means your software level, and also at the infra level. Because
But are
infra
we moving
itself,
in the right direction and at the right pace, Rajat? Just
see,
as yet, let me quickly bring Rajat also into this conversation because that's a very interesting point that you've raised, and I'll come to the point of deepfakes in just a moment. But right now, is enough being done in terms of infrastructure push effort being made? If this is truly, Rajat, a civilizational turning point, are we, for example, spending enough on R&D? Are we keeping pace with global developments that Mr. Sahay speaks of?
The short answer is no. But there is only so much that the governments can do. It is up to us creative minds who have to work hard and walk the talk. All I can say is that I'm cautiously optimistic. There are the basic ingredients that are needed to build an edifice around, and most certainly this is a civilizational moment, primarily because the way AI emerges, the controls, the entire stack controls, we should not fall into a situation that we do not have any control whatsoever. I mean, right from the hardware stack, right from the energy stack in itself, do we have the enough energy resources to power up the future data centers that will come in? Do we have the hardware that has to sit inside these data centers? Who is making those data centers at those scales which can serve 1.5 billion people? And on top of that, these TPUs and GPUs which are sitting in these data centers are currently also training the global models. So we are the raw material providers of the AI super cycle that is there out in the world. What are we going to do to control those? Those are very important questions. But again, you have to start from somewhere, and the government is showing the way forward, which is absolutely fresh. No other country around the world is getting that much of support what Indian government has done. So that is what is giving me optimism. If your decision makers are thinking in the right line, and I believe the creative and the entrepreneurial energy that is there in the country, all of those basic ingredients can add up together towards a brighter future. But I'll just point out to the last point that you were mentioning. It is around responsible AI. I think this is the most important thing. Indian data, there should not be a scenario where Indian data is being used against Indians to attack us. I mean, look at the most ripe debate right now in the US is Anthropic versus OpenAI, whether those models will be open up for the US defense to train their guns against their adversaries. I think that is where the moot debates are going to happen, and India needs to have a stake. And this is where leaders and what they say, how they envision the future matters a lot. This is where
And
the
that's
government
exactly why we started this debate with data sovereignty. Absolutely, completely take your point. And that's why the first point that we raised was data sovereignty. But Cyrus, coming back to capabilities, that Rajat raised the point of where are we on the GPUs? Does India possess the kind of compute scale, for example, that is required? Our chip dependence and the need for chip independence, research depth, influence, where are we? Are we in a position to influence the global AI architecture in any which way, except, of course, our data going overseas?
So, Gaurav, the first thing is everything is about GPUs these days, and GPUs are giving the compute power to AI to do all these calculations. Right now, India has an infrastructure of 38,000 GPUs, and the Prime Minister said that we are adding 20,000 more soon. So, this cluster of about 58,000 GPUs does give us a certain sort of semblance in terms of our AI training, but we need to understand And OpenAI trains its model on millions of GPUs, and that is an astronomical number in the terms of AI training it's doing on a daily basis. So while 50,000 GPUs is a decent number, we need to scale our GPUs. Our infrastructure also needs to scale up. But the important bit is the partnerships need to come from both private entities and government entities, because you look at in the US, the AI development is happening mostly by private players. And the government hasn't taken that initiative as yet, but in India, it's more the government driving it. So I think the private players also need to come up with more infrastructure projects like Reliance and Ambani's are doing. And then we can say that, yes, the acceleration is happening at a rate where we will be able to play, we'll be able to catch up with the global players. Right now, I'd say we're doing decently, but the infrastructure definitely needs to improve in the coming days.
And Rajat, then coming back to the point of India acquiring an additional 20,000 GPUs over the next 6 months, I think that is what the Prime Minister referred to. While that would add to overall compute power, but are we moving one in the right direction perhaps, but at the right pace, at the right speed?
So directionally, yes, governments can only do so much. It's the taxpayer money which has to go into welfareism and redistribution. So it is not though the government is attempting to bring in that early mover advantage for certain startups acquiring these GPUs, because otherwise startups don't have the negotiating power to go and negotiate with an NVIDIA to get access to these GPUs. So this catch-22 problem government is trying to address, but the scale is missing, of course, because the government can't do it. Is the Infosys, are these big players who should be stepping in and should be committing to ensuring that we have access to adequate amount of GPUs, TPUs, all of those technologies. We should also have our own hardware design, electronic design answers to these. Maybe if we can bring down the cost of GPU, perhaps we can then play that cost arbitrage angle and stay relevant. We need to bring one order lower the cost of the current GPUs. It is unsustainable otherwise. There are areas where I believe there is enough leg room, elbow room for the Indian entrepreneurs to come in and create value over there. And I believe hardware is one area where we can do phenomenally well, especially on the design of these futuristic GPUs.
Sanjay Sahay, let me now come to the point that the Prime Minister raised on deep fakes and the instability it may cause in open societies. And this could very well be used as a weapon by hostile powers. So when the Prime Minister talks of moral and ethical systems, he's also seeking global cooperation. But in your view, is watermarking, while that may be one way forward, how do you look at should we call it a war against deepfakes or an effort against deepfakes?
See, AI governance is something at a global scale, which has just been talked about, and I don't think we are even in the nascent stage of it. So that is the reality of life, and none of the governments, but for declaration, have been able to make any dent into the whole system of either deepfakes or data sovereignty, or even protection of data. See, at the end of the day, where does the data reside today? Data resides somewhere else, primarily, most of it data. And if the data were to be left in India, it becomes extremely difficult for us to process. We barely process 10 to 15% of our data. Coming to deepfakes, watermarking seems to be a very simple sort of a solution where literally anybody and everybody and all types of models, they agree to it. Private players agree to it, governments agrees to it, literally everybody has to agree to it. And we are also trying to somehow befool us that watermarking will be an ultimate solution and there will be nothing beyond it, and people will not be able to fake watermarking. It is basically a battle of attrition, which we have not started. The battle is already there playing in our half. If you take the football field, the whole battle of deepfake is in our side of the football field. There is absolutely nothing which we have been able to do on the deepfake fraternity, which is quite strong, and it operates not only for deepfakes, it operates for large number of cyber crimes and also inclusive of political espionage. So watermarking can be a starting point, but the way things will get iterated and evolved, I think the battle has to go on. So it is a permanent battle between the good and the evil, and the capability of the governments, regulatory agencies, intelligence agencies to lay their hands on people who go astray and put them to stringent punishment. I think that will help besides tackling the technology on a day-to-day basis.
Rajat, quickly, okay, before I come to Rajat, I want you to listen in to the Prime Minister talking of this ethical global governance, the MANAV model, and what needs to be done to tackle deepfakes. Listen in.
साथियों, आज न्यू दिल्ली एआई इम्पैक्ट समिट में मैं एआई के लिए MANAV मानव विजन प्रस्तुत करता हूं। मानव का अर्थ होता है ह्यूमन, और मानव विजन कहता है मोरल एंड एथिकल सिस्टम्स, यानी एआई एथिकल गाइडेंस पर आधारित हो। अकाउंटेबल गवर्नेंस, यानी ट्रांसपेरेंट रूल्स, रोबस्ट ओवरसाइट, एंड नेशनल सॉवरेनिटी, यानी जिसका डेटा उसका अधिकार। एक्सेसिबल एंड इंक्लूसिव, यानी एआई मोनोपोली नहीं, मल्टीप्लायर बने। वैलिड एंड लेजिटिमेट, यानी एआई लॉफुल और वेरीफाइबल हो। भारत का ये मानव विजन 21वीं सदी की एआई आधारित दुनिया में मानवता के कल्याण की अहम कड़ी बनेगा।
So, following the country's civilizational philosophy of Sarvajan Hitaye, or benefit to all, welfare of all, what is the government doing, Cyrus? This conversation of 76,000 crore rupees for semiconductors, I think 10 odd projects have been approved. Chip dependence, does that remain one of the key areas? And of course, India's demographic scale that we have. Now, while that takes us on a high, does our dependence just bring us down?
That's one of the major concerns, Gaurav, because most of the dependence right now is on one company, NVIDIA, which is operating. Most of the chips come from Taiwan. That one small island is making chips for almost 98% of the world. And when dependence comes from one nation, you kind of have to think of other strategies. Yes, India has a semiconductor mission. We are making chips. We're trying to fabricate chips over here, but that will take some time. Most of the fabrication is happening in Taiwan. The designing, however, yes, some of it is being shifted to India. We are looking to design chips, but the primary process is of fabrication, which happens through these lithography machines that are available in Taiwan. These are expensive machines, need expertise, and you cannot have them operated in every part of the world. That's why I think the fact that we need to have semiconductors labeled and made over here, the assembly needs to happen here, okay, I think will give us the opportunity to expand our semiconductor footprint.
US President Donald Trump has reviewed a possible timeline for military action against Iran. The reports coming in from the United States say security officials in the United States, and these are officials of the Pentagon, also of the State Department, they're indicating that the Pentagon operationally is ready to strike if there is a command from the White House. So this US military buildup, that's very visible. The world's largest aircraft carrier, and now you have two aircraft carrier strike groups in the region. USS Gerald R. It's currently off the coast of Morocco. It's near the Strait of Gibraltar and is expected to move closer to Israel and Iran in the next 3 to 4 days. So is that the timeline? Is that the time that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and the regime in Iran have to either agree to that dialogue, especially on capping the limits of their ballistic missile capabilities, and of course the nukes? The vessel, we are told, has activated its AIS tracking system. It crossed the Atlantic, revealed its location and movement. So the US wants the world to see where the second aircraft carrier strike group currently is. There are more than 50 additional US fighter jets that have arrived in the region in the past 24 hours, and these include the 5th generation F-35s, the F-22 Raptors. They also include the F-15s and the F-16s. Apart from this, more than 170 cargo flights. The C-17 Globemasters, they've been carrying weapons, equipment. They've landed in bases across the Gulf, including in Qatar, in Jordan, in Bahrain. Apart from the Globemasters, you also have the C-5 Galaxies. They've arrived in West Asia. Now this, according to American media reports, is perhaps the largest American military buildup after the Gulf War in this region in 2003. At the same time, the Pentagon is also repositioning some of their troops. They are repositioning their troops out of this region, taking some as a precautionary measure either to Europe, or some are being repatriated, they're being taken home. It's a step ahead of conflict to ensure safety of US personnel in the region should Iran strike back at US bases in the region. Does that indicate that a strike is imminent? We get you more in this report.
West Asia is on the brink. Explosive signals from Washington, Tel Aviv and Tehran. A US strike on Iran is possible soon. US media reports that US President Donald Trump has reviewed a strike timeline. Top security officials say Pentagon is ready. No final order yet, but troop repositioning has begun, a pre-strike move to limit Iranian retaliation. There is a massive US military surge. The world's largest aircraft carrier, USS Gerald R Fort, is racing towards the Mediterranean, joining another US carrier already in the Arabian Sea. Two floating strike platforms are tightening the ring around Iran. Over 50 fighter jets deployed in 24 hours. More than 170 cargo flights carrying weapons and high-tech systems reached Gulf bases. Satellite images show Tehran preparing for impact. Iran has sealed nuclear tunnels. Underground construction is accelerating. Clear signs that Tehran expects a strike. Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei has issued a direct warning to Washington, a post showing a sunken USS Gerald R. Ford, claiming Iranian weapons are more dangerous than a warship. Israel has also shifted to maximum war readiness. Highest level alert declared, Arrow, David Sling, Iron Dome, all anti-missile defense system activated. Prime Minister Netanyahu held multiple closed-door security meetings. Diplomacy collapsing. Militaries mobilizing. One decision in Washington could trigger the next big West Asia war. Bureau Report, India Today.
So is this part of the US gunboat diplomacy? Quite like Otto von Bismarck, use the military hardware, position it, and then coerce the adversary into negotiations. But do keep in mind, Iran this time has made it very clear. They want dialogue, they want peace, but should there be a strike, they will strike back and hard. And this time, they will not hold back. They'll use their latest weapons, including their supersonic missiles and their hypersonic missiles. Is that the reason why the Americans are also withdrawing and repositioning some of their troops in the region? Let me quickly cut across and bring in India Today's Pranay Upadhyay for more on the story. So, Pranay, Pentagon saying operationally they're ready. All they're waiting for is an instruction from the White House. Now, is President Trump this time looking at an opportunity to strike, or is peace still being given a chance? Will there be more negotiations over the next 24 to 48 hours?
While United States is engaging with Iran in diplomatic negotiations, the military positioning and military posturing is very aggressive, Gaurav, as you can make out that in last 1 week, around 50 US military tankers, KC-135, have been moved to the Middle East and especially the Gulf region, the Gulf bases of United States. And also, if United States have decided to move two of its aircraft carrier in the CENTCOM region, definitely this is being perceived and considered as a very aggressive posture. So definitely, President Donald Trump seems to be moving ahead with his maximum pressure policy on Iran. Uh, Having said that, recently they had 2 rounds of, Oman-mediated deliberations with Iran. There are indication, and also there is an aggressive posture by Iran from Iran as well. So this is a very precarious and a very volatile situation that while both countries are engaging into diplomatic dialogue and conversation with each other, but there is an aggressive posture from the US side, and as well as the way IRGC has conducted live fire drill in Strait of Hormuz, and in last many years. For the first time, Iran actually demonstrated how they can close the Strait of Hormuz. And in fact, there are ships of Russia as well as of China in the region for the joint military exercise with Iran. So clearly, the entire Gulf of Persia and Gulf of Oman are turning out into a very tense battlefield. And if you count the military platforms placed by all these countries, and especially the aircraft carriers and the kind of exercise, the kind of the visuals coming out from the CENTCOM region, clearly the F-18s, F-16s, and F-22s are taking sorties in the region. Besides that, the tactical and
In fact, this time you have the Russians and the Chinese who are sending out a counter message to the Americans that it's not the state of play is very fluid, and they're standing with Iran. So Iran is not isolated with Russian ships and Chinese ships in these waters. So is that also a reason why the Americans will weigh all their options very closely? Because even in the Gulf countries, most Gulf partners want dialogue, want negotiations, and not conflict. And if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, it impacts global economy.
Absolutely, Gaurav. Around 30% or over almost 40% of the oil trade passes through. In fact, countries like India, countries like China have their own energy interest in the region. If the Gulf of Hormuz if Iran tries and close that, this is going to choke the global oil supply. It has its own ramification. Besides that, the Gulf countries, the major oil producer countries, have their own concern regarding the oil prices in the region. So this is going to be a big disruptor. But definitely, United States is weighing all the options. But will there be a direct engagement? If Russia and China try and intervene or try and side with Iran, that is going to be a very very volatile and a very difficult situation. So we do not know as yet, but definitely the military option is on the table of US President Donald Trump, and we have seen in the past as well that you will recall, Gaurav, that during April and May also, US engaged in dialogue with Iran. But they ended up conducting a military strike because, this time, recent meeting of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to Washington, D.C., therein they discussed the Iran situation. Iran want U.S. to take military strike against the missile capabilities of Iran,
Israel,
and
yes.
the complete denuclearization of Iran, as well as the missile cap to be implemented on the Iran's capability. So these are the things which US and Israel are trying to enforce, and obviously Iran.
And that's a strict no-go. That's a strict no-go area for Iran. Iran has made it very clear there is no question of capping the range of their ballistic missiles. And this time, what could be critical, Iran has the newer generation missiles, capabilities to make them, capabilities to use them, the supersonic missiles, the hypersonic missiles, the Khyber Shikan and Khurramshahr missile, all of these that neither Israel nor the United States have anything to counter them. They've overwhelmed the Iron Dome and the David Sling in the past. They could do so again, and especially in the wider West Asia region.
Absolutely, Gaurav. The kind of military equipment which is being, deployed, be it in Iran or be it in the West Asian bases of United States, definitely this poses a serious military threat or conflict situation in the region. Because if you see the strategic CM5. C-5M, the heaviest strategic lift aircraft deployed by the United States at Al Udeid base, or be it the deployment of around 50 KC-135 strategic oil tankers in the region. This clearly shows that United States is contemplating a situation of either countering the Iranian counterstrike or counter-military or missile strike. And in fact, what we are learning from sources that, there is a list of the strategic missile bases of Iran given to President Donald Trump for potential, target areas. So we have to see that whether President Donald Trump decides at a time when he is holding a Board of Peace meeting today, as we are having this conversation, there is a meeting, which is scheduled in Washington, D.C., Board of Peace. Many of these OIC countries are participating there, and many of these countries are having, a good relation with Iran, and obviously they will be concerned about any flare-up in the West Asia region.
Bangladesh under Tariq Rahman is signaling a calibrated reset with India. So the newly appointed Minister for Youth and Sports in Bangladesh, Aminul Haque, he's indicated a desire to rebuild cricketing ties with the BCCI after relations were strained during the World Cup T20 and that fallout of the IPL. So he's confirmed a meeting with India's Deputy High Commissioner immediately after taking oath. They've described the interaction as friendly, focused on resolving all issues through dialogue. Now, Aminul Islam said necessary steps are being taken and would be taken in line with ICC rules. He's emphasized maintaining good relations with neighboring countries, and this comes following the exit of the interim regime led by Muhammad Yunus, the Nobel laureate, and after the swearing in of the new government in Dhaka. At the same time, Bangladesh Prime Minister Tariq Rahman, in his national address, stressed on equal rights for all citizens. Remember, India for a very long time has been talking about equal rights of all citizens, including all minorities, including Hindus. Reconciliation is something that Bangladesh is now talking about within the country. They've had a contentious election. They've prioritized, now they're saying they will prioritize law and order. Anti-corruption is their main effort. So a broader push to stabilize governance in Bangladesh and perhaps recalibrate ties, both domestically and in the region. I quickly want to bring in India Today's Indrajit Kundu for more on this. Indrajit, under Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, the relations with India were very strained. Now with Tariq Rahman Saab at the helm of affairs, do you notice a subtle shift? Is the relationship, is an effort being made to bring the relationship back on an even keel?
Well, absolutely, Gaurav. It's not even subtle. It's pretty explicit, if you ask me, because I was there in Dhaka just about 72 hours back, and I've spoken to numerous leadership, senior leaders in the BNP even before the government was formed, and they were very, very keen in resetting ties with India. In fact, I also spoke to officials in the Indian High Commission there, and they were very categorical. They said that they would only want to safeguard Indian interests. And as far as relationship with Bangladesh is concerned, it's a sovereign nation. India doesn't want to mingle in the affairs of Bangladesh. It has certain concerns, and it would raise those concerns with the new leadership. This is now an elected government. The mandate of Muhammad Yunus was very limited. He was not elected. It was an interim selected, person for the interim administration, and his mandate was limited, and therefore the Indian government's engagement, if you see, Gaurav, was also limited. But as soon as Tariq Rahman made his way back to Bangladesh, we saw Foreign Minister going to Bangladesh, meeting Tariq Rahman even before the elections, and now with Om Birla going in, Foreign Secretary going, and Foreign Secretary, they have also reached out to the BNP. So these are all, absolutely, so these are all positive signs. And also one positive thing is there was a lot of demand from people in Bangladesh that India begin giving tourist visas to Bangladeshis. Now that seems to be also easing out, given what we've seen with our high commissions and assistant high commission in Chittagong, the kind of attacks.
Tell me more about the sporting ties. Do we see resumption of cricket, for example, that's always seen as something that builds ties between neighbors? The conversation with Aminul Haque, the sports minister, his conversation with the deputy high commissioner. So are they resolving all these issues?
Well, there's no reason for Bangladesh to not begin sporting ties with India, because remember Asif Nazrul, who was a sports advisor, he almost took a very hawkish stance with a look towards the internal politics, even though those advisors did not contest in this election, so they did not have the mandate. So it was baffling as to why suddenly the sports advisor then, just a week back, had taken such a hawkish stance. The new government, as you said, Aminul Islam, he has been elected. He is now the sports minister, and he's suggesting that there should be resumption of ties with India. So clearly, they have the mandate of the people, and they want to build, rebuild and reset, the strenuous relationship that India has seen with Bangladesh over the past 1.5 years.
Once again, Kerala, ahead of elections, is at the heart of a political flashpoint. So with the trailer of Kerala Story 2 now out, fault lines have sharpened over faith, facts and freedom of expression. Now this controversy has moved beyond the big screen to the heart of political discourse ahead of Kerala elections. So what is the story of Kerala, Kerala Story 2?
Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, who's described the film once again as a propaganda and an attempt to malign the state. How do you respond to this?
With very great respect, I want to tell the Chief Minister of Kerala that we are not maligning any state. Kerala is our God's own country, beautiful country. I love it. We all have multiple times to Kerala. We all know how pretty it is. But just because it is as pretty as it is, it doesn't mean that it does not have criminals.
Its Kerala Story 2 goes beyond. It's a spiritual sequel of Kerala Story 1. In Kerala, see, communication is a tool to sensitize people, and filmmaking is one of them. In first, what we set as a narrative that there are this kind of things happening in Kerala, people accepted it, people went to the theaters, watched, and there was a talk among the society. People started saying that this is a thing which is happening only in Kerala. So we wanted to tell everyone in this country that it's not only in Kerala, it is everywhere.
Divisive for some, Save Our Daughters campaign, say the filmmakers. You decide, we get you all sides of the story. That is all I have for you on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.